Okay, good morning, everybody. It is 10 o'clock and our meeting has started. We're going to give a few people a few more minutes to catch up and join us. We're happy that you're here. As you can tell, we have a bigger group of people than usual. We have a lot going on today. I think it's going to be a great meeting. Once again, this meeting is in webinar format, which means that you cannot ask questions live. We do have the chat function. So if you're new to this, if you look down at the bottom, there's a little blurb and it says chat. Just click on that to everybody and everyone will see it. We also have our speaker, Kurt Leuchner. Did I say it right, Kurt?
Yeah, Leuchner.
Leuchner. And he will be speaking to us live. So if you do have questions, Cheryl will monitor it and then she will ask the questions for you. So this will be really fun today. Once again, our meeting is being recorded and will be available on our website by this afternoon, both the business part of the meeting as well as our speakers. When you receive the agenda, it gave you the link and the password, so you can go in and access that and do it anytime that is convenient for you. So each month, Sue Miller and I decide that we want a different theme behind us. So this time we picked you. We've had a couple of virtual events and behind me is the holiday party. And what you'll notice, a couple of them, Leslie, when I took the picture, the best picture, you were actually gone. So then I had to crop another picture of you and put it in. Same with Sue Miller. So I don't believe in bad pictures. So if there's any way I can grab the better picture, I'm going to do it. And Sue, do you want to talk about what's behind you?
Yeah, my background is from the new member virtual welcome that we held in September in lieu of our traditional afternoon reception. Our new member liaison, Diana Lombroso, introduced the sponsors, and then they in turn introduced our new members. We talked about our civic projects and then how we would be communicating during the pandemic. And then to add on to this, next Monday, we've invited 2 classes of our newest members, as well as the nominated co-presidents, new co-presidents, to another Zoom chat to kind of review our year and get their input as we plan the year ahead. So the new members have had a virtual existence mainly this year, but we're looking ahead to next year.
It's a very different experience. So as you know, I have each month done a PowerPoint presentation, and it's been of the year before. And we got to February and we had nothing, but I asked our members to send pictures because I would like to share these pictures with you. So everybody was very responsive and it's really fun. So I'm going to ask you all to do this again for our May meeting. So this one is Celebrate Spring. And it is my pleasure to share what our members have sent in. This is from Diane Bell. And she took the most unbelievable bird pictures. I mean, I said, what kind of camera? And when she told me her camera, I thought, well, it definitely was not my iPhone, but yeah. Are very happy birds in her backyard. And I'll let you all read what it says, but I'm amazed. She has photographed over 35 species in her yard since the beginning of the COVID lockdown.
Wow.
That's sweet.
Yeah. Orange crown warbler.
And Anna's hummingbird. So these, I think, are just beautiful pictures. And then Suzanne Barkley sent this, and she said they just show up every year in her backyard and she doesn't have to do anything, which is wonderful and amazing, and also beautiful. Elizabeth Hansen, I also asked, where do you go on your walks? And Elizabeth sent this from the Bayside Walk at Cabrillo Monument. These are from Barbara Dorn. And you know what? She said, spring is here. These flowers are as happy as Barbara is. Don't those just say Barbara Dorn? I mean, really, they're so gorgeous and happy. And then another, these are from Jeannie. She took these hummingbirds outside of her daughter's door. What a way to say spring, because they were just ready to take flight. This is Jessalyn's front yard with the beautiful wisteria and another view. So they were lovely. And then Marianne Brown welcomed spring with these pictures of her, let's see if I correct me, Babania bulbs. And
Babiana.
Babiana. Thank you, Babiana bulbs. You can tell who the gardener is not in this group. She thought that they smelled so good and she wished we could smell them. And look at those freesias. Isn't that beautiful?
Mm-hmm.
This is from Annie Versteeg's colorful and bountiful front yard. And then this one is Lily's from something she called night farming. So the next time we see Annie, we need to figure out what night farming is. And these beautiful orchids. Carol Guess's Rose Arbor was just such a lovely welcome. And she sent so many pictures. I did not use them all, but each one was more beautiful than the next. And her beautiful flower boxes that says, spring is here. And then Carol sent a lot of rose pictures, but she said her favorite is the mustard and ketchup.
Oh, I love that one.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I wanted to thank everybody who participated and for sharing their pictures along with their love of gardening. And again, it's Suzanne Barkley, Diane Bell, Marianne Brown, Barbara Dorn, Carol Guess, Elizabeth Hanson, Jeannie Smith, Annie Versteeg, and Jessalyn Wincoop. And then I also clipped this in because I saw this in the paper today. And it's a little small to read, especially if you're on a smaller phone, but it says, this is from Eating Well. Plant a garden and get ready to reap the healthy rewards. And we're talking more than just farm fresh peas and carrots. Studies show that gardening can help keep you happy and healthy from head to toe, and no green thumb required. So thank you.
Okay. 1 second here. Okay, at the beginning of the year, we handed out membership cards to California Garden Clubs during our yearbook distribution drive-by. And today we are honored to have Shane Looper, president of CGCI, take time out of her busy schedule to speak to us. So welcome, Shane.
Well, thank you. I am so pleased. First of all, I'm not good at Zoom either. So if you're hearing me properly, just give me a thumbs up. I want to talk a little bit about California Garden Clubs. I know that we're kind of like the thing on the side of clubs because we only have 3 meetings a year. And this year has not been very great at going to a meeting. So I wanted to tell you, you're part of a state organization, which is part of a national organization. And you need to know that California Garden Clubs loves their members because they join us. We're the largest state organization of clubs and members. Before COVID, I should say, we had something like 19,000 members. We're just about 17,000 members now. And mainly it's because our members, they're a little shy if they can't come to the meeting and pay their membership. So I'm assuming by the time we all get out there again, that we'll be back up to that 19,000. And that is a very large part of National Garden Clubs. Both National Garden Clubs and California Garden Clubs offer to their members some grants, some different membership benefits. California Garden Clubs in particular offers the cheapest liability in the world for $1 million, which is $1.50 a member.
Wow.
We haven't changed that amount in a long time. And I'm very aware of your club and their garden tour because I was the liability insurance person before I became president. And just so you know, they're giving it back to me. They don't want to do it anymore. So I'll be returning as the liability chairman in the next term. As president, we have, the president is obligated, or I shouldn't say obligated, wants to have a project specific to the president. So my project is something called San Bruno Mountain State and County Park, where they're restoring a botanical garden. Fortunately, I live in Mission Blue butterfly country, and the largest population of Mission Blue butterflies is on this mountain. And it's just a big mountain. It's surrounded by San Francisco, Daly City. You guys don't know some of these, Colma, Brisbane, and South San Francisco, where I live. And the purpose of this is to get the mountains specific, I guess, flora and fauna and animals so that we can identify them. And there'll be signage all over with California Garden Clubs on it if we ever get that far. At this point, we committed to a $20,000 fundraising. We're close. We're about 17,200 and something, which is specifically from selling our jewelry. Can you believe that? We sell jewelry back to ourselves, and we make a little bit of money to go towards this president. So if you're interested, let me know. We're always looking for donations. And the other thing that I want to talk about a little bit is I noticed I saw floral arrangements in the little preview before we went live. And one of the things I'd like to say to your members, if you're really interested in floral design, maybe you'd like to join an organization that is part of California Garden Clubs called OFAD. And it's an organization of floral art designers. And I brought the brochure. And once a year, they have a seminar here in South San Francisco at the Embassy Suites. And it's going to be in October. And they have their own website, and it's called ofad.design if you're interested. It's a wonderful thing if you're a big floral designer. So that's my little on the side thing I wanted to tell you. And I'm going to also tell you that we're going to have a virtual convention. So that means all of you can come to this convention. It will be the week of May 24th. You will get some information on it. There'll be workshops. There'll be lots of different things going on, but anybody can come. We ask that your presidents or some delegates go to the business meeting. You don't have to attend the business meeting unless you really want to see what we really do. And there'll be reports from all these chairmen we have. We have 80 chairmen. So you'll get to hear some of them, not all of them. And this is my special invite to each one of you. Please come. Your presidents will get the call, and maybe you'd like to join us. And you know what the wonderful thing about Zoom is, if you don't like it, you can leave. And so I'm hoping that you like some of the things we're doing, and will stay and listen, and maybe someday join California Garden Club's Board of Directors. Thank you for letting me speak, and hello, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shane. That's a lot of good information. So next announcement, for those of you vaccinated members who are anxious to get out of the house and enjoy the spring weather in a garden setting, Susan Starr has a great idea to share with you. Susan?
Yes, do you have my slide?
Coming right up, I think.
Yes, no? Do you want me to share it off my screen?
She's muted. Maybe you better. Sue, do you want Susan to share from her screen? Ah,
Ah, there it goes. Presto. Okay, but I don't see me. Well, maybe you see me. Okay, so this is, so I was sitting in the conservatory at the Botanic Garden. I'm a volunteer there and a tour guide. And I was thinking how beautiful it was. And I thought, oh, wow, you know, I'd like to share it. It's so pretty. And it occurred to me that now that the CDC has said that small groups of people who are vaccinated can gather together, we could actually have some mini field trips. So I am going to give 4 mini field trips to the Botanic Garden for anybody who wants to come, as long as you've been vaccinated. These will be on 4 Thursday mornings in April. That's April 1st, 8th, 15th, and 28th. The 23rd is our, I think it's 23rd, 22nd is our meeting. So obviously we're not meeting then. But the other days, yeah, the 22nd is our meeting, and the 29th. So we'll do it on 4 Thursdays at 10 a.m. in the morning. And the garden, of course, is beautiful in September, in April. Spring, as we've seen in those beautiful pictures. And in addition, there's a few things going on at the garden. There's always things going on at the garden. They're having a new sculpture exhibit that's organized by the Oceanside Art Alliance. So there's new sculpture throughout the garden, which we'll get to see. Starting April 3rd, which is after our first trip. The first trip is the first, but starting April 3rd, they're opening something called World of Orchids. This is a new event for the garden. They're going to have orchids from local orchid societies in the conservatory, and they'll be there all lined up, and there'll be fresh ones coming in all the time. So we get to see a lot of orchids. I understand Renee Van Rems, who did our arrangements for the raffle, also will be doing arrangements in the as part of the World of Orchids exhibit. They'll be in the conservatory. Even if you come on the 1st, though, before this starts, you'll see orchids, because last time I was in the conservatory, there were a lot of orchids blooming. So lots to see up in the garden. So it's 4 Thursday mornings in April. The details are all in the handout that went out with your agenda. It's for people who are vaccinated, and you need to be okay with hills, because during the pandemic, the garden has moved its entrance to the bottom of the property, which means in order to see it, we have to walk up the hill. So if that's a problem for you, just let you know. Assuming it's not, you can sign up online. There's 6 slots for each tour. The link to sign up is in your flyer. It's also on the screen. And you sign up there, do that first, make sure there's a space for you. And then after you've done that, you have a second step. You need to pay and reserve an entrance slot at the garden in advance. Like many institutions, the zoo, whatever, you can't just show up and pay when you arrive like you used to be able to do. During the pandemic, you have to reserve a slot for crowd control and pay in advance. It's not expensive. Seniors are only $12. Adults are $18, members are free. So sign up online first, and then pay and reserve a slot at San Diego Botanic Garden, also online. And then we'll just meet in the parking lot. And of course, I'll be in touch with everybody who's coming in advance if you need directions or something. So I hope you'll join us. Should be fun to see each other, get out in the fresh air, celebrate spring together. And if you have any questions, my name is Susan Starr, and don't hesitate to reach out to me. Best way to reach me is either by email or on my cell phone. Thanks, bye.
Thank you, Susan. All right, moving on with announcements. Membership renewals and new member sponsorships are underway, and we want to thank everyone in advance who has already renewed. We've had a really good initial response, but please remind your friends if they haven't renewed of our May 1st deadline. We all know what a busy mom Sarah is, and renewing now really helps her avoid a rush at the end of April. So also, we've now completed the first phase of our informational survey that we sent out, and we've heard from about 1/3 of our club members. We're grateful for all the information you've provided, so thank you for taking the time to answer the questions. We'll be sending the second phase this week to another randomly selected group, so you may receive a questionnaire from Susan Harris's email, 34vshh@gmail.com. And thanks in advance for taking part in this. Later in the year, the executive committee is looking forward to sharing the results with all of you. On to committee reports. And we are excited to hear what Bonnie has to say about our reimagined expressions next month. Bonnie?
You're muted.
Bonnie, you're muted.
Got it.
Ah.
We're excited, of course, that this is finally going to happen. Janet and I were able to spend a day last week with Renee Van Rems, who is our presenter for Expressions in Art and Flowers this year. He was one of the originators of Art Alive at the San Diego Museum of Art. So he's well versed in interpreting art through floral design. And quite frankly, I thought I knew most of what I needed to know for such things, but I really learned quite a bit from him while we were watching his presentation. Renee is always lively, and he kept the day fun as he talked about the elements of design while tackling the art of three of our members, Paige Perkins, Wendy Watson-Dietrich, and Elaine Butts. All three of them had entered their work in our show that was planned for last March, but we were never able to have it because of the COVID. In the process, we raised $1,320 for Schoolyard Gardens, the Schoolyard Gardens Committee, and Jocelyn Vortman, Sue Miller, and Ann Craig all received some wonderful arrangements. Janet, do you have some information there?
Yes, I have a fabulous, well, not a picture of a fabulous arrangement. I hold this up properly. Anne Craig is standing at her front door holding the arrangement that Renee made while Bonnie and I watched. And Anne was delighted. She said it was absolutely perfect on her dining room table.
Gorgeous.
The other two arrangements you'll see next month. This is just a teaser.
Great.
We hope you'll all tune in.
Right. We hope you all will join us next month with Expressions. I think you'll enjoy it a great deal.
Well, we always look forward to Expressions, you two. Thank you so much. Julia with Bouquet of Thanks.
Thank you very much, Sue. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not seeing myself on the screen, but maybe that's okay. Again, I'm chair of Bouquet of Thanks, and we just completed our third project for the year. And it was our traditional Tillandsia with shells and driftwood. Annette Ritchie-Bice very bravely stood up and said, yes, I'll chair it again. She's done it. This will be her third year that she did it. We had to do it outside because of COVID, and it got delayed once because of a very nasty weather report that we had. So it got delayed from the 10th of March until the 17th. There were about 6 ladies who met: Sandy Small, Susie Johnson, Judith Johnson, Paula McGrime, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing it correctly, Bonnie Sipe, and then of course Annette. And they all got together and they made about 118 just delightful arrangements, some in shells, some in driftwood. This is the sort of thing. How come I can't see myself here? This is the sort of thing. Can you see the shell here?
Oh, move it towards your left.
Yeah, for some reason I'm not seeing
The other
my own presentation. Anyway,
There, we can
There.
see it.
okay. Anyway, this is a shell, a Ramos shell with a Tillandsia in it, and we had several different kinds of Tillandsias, and they were also attached to driftwood with moss and shells and other things. They're really pretty arrangements. They last forever. They take almost no care, so they're perfect for the Veterans Hospital. We've been doing it now for I think about 8 years, and that's one of their favorite projects. So I think I'd like to give a big thanks to Annette for stepping up to chair this during COVID. And also she wanted me to especially thank Susie Johnson and Sandy Small, who stayed after to help her clean up, which is also an important thing to do when you're hosting an event like this. We have one more event coming up, which we're going to try to do in late May, and that will be doing baskets with floral, not floral, but with floral mesh and kalanchoes, which are lovely little blooming succulents that are very bright and colorful. And again, we'll decorate those probably with some flags and some patriotic themed items. We don't have a date yet set for it, but it will be sometime in May. Hopefully we'll have the ability to have a lot of people come to this one, because I think a lot of people are getting vaccinated now, so it will be a little bit safer to meet as a group. I thank everybody who has been donating to this project over the years, and we get the majority of our funding during the membership renewal, when people pledge donations at that point in time. So anyway, we really appreciate your support, and also the support of all the volunteers that we have in this particular project. We've had a lot of people, again, despite COVID, step up, and we've been able to continue our mission of providing floral arrangements and seasonal items to the Veterans Hospital. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Julia. So next up is Moore's Healing Garden, and Debbie and Karen Morse have been all through the pandemic, have been working in this garden, grooming it for, you know, the patients and their families. And now we have a presentation on our healing garden.
Ready, Debbie?
Yes. Do you want me to?
Debbie, did you want to say something first?
I just wanted to just introduce it a little bit first. I was recently in a Zoom meeting with Linda Holland, who approached Penelope West in 2011 to ask her if our Village Garden Club of La Jolla would be interested in coming into the Moores Cancer Center Healing Garden of Hope to refurbish and maintain the healing garden. Linda presented this video that you are going to watch to the people in the Zoom meeting to let them know the state of disrepair that the healing garden had fallen into at the time, and to show them what our garden club has done to help to repair and refurbish the healing garden. So I just wanted to let you guys know where this video came from.
Okay, now are you ready? Here we go.
Thank you so much, Debbie. And I have like a little personal story. I joined this committee near the beginning, and we monthly went and helped groom this garden, looking in, through the window, seeing the patients enjoy the garden. And little did I know I was going to become a patient there. And so I would like try to get a window seat every time I had to have an infusion, just to look out over the beautiful garden. And it really means a lot to these patients to have something beautiful to look at as they get infusions. And that's where the windows are, the infusion areas. So thank you so much to everybody that grooms that garden. It's really, really appreciated by the patients and actually the nurses too. They don't want the hedges too high because they want to be able to look out over the garden too. So thank you. Jacaranda and Habitat Tree Planting Program. Penelope,
Yes.
is that you?
Yes, that's, I'm doing it this time. Ivana asked me to present it this time. She did it last time. As you know, oh good. As you know, Ivana and I have steered this committee to expand from solely jacaranda trees to habitat trees. And I will admit that our thinking has evolved from only California native trees, which we started with the idea, and to trees recognized by the city as beneficial for the environment, for having some of the characteristics that we are now looking for. Such characteristics as they provide year-round shade for neighborhoods where the tree canopy is sparse, and they cool the atmosphere to counter global warming, scores well on the carbon sequestration spectrum, offer habitat animals and insects, especially pollinators, serve as green oasis, providing respite from the built environment, are considered drought tolerant, and most importantly, create beauty and maybe future landmark trees. Because of the importance of planting the right tree in the right place, that means that there may be different habitat trees selected, not just one tree. However, habitat is just a category of trees. It's not an image itself. And we realize that it's difficult for members to visualize what any habitat tree might look like. So I have culled some photographs off the web, and I'm afraid the quality of the photography is not quite up to standard normally. But anyway, this gives you an idea of just two of the trees that we think would be very good. And they are the red gum, which is, now I'm not sure which of these is red gum. I think, well, one of them is red gum and one of them is the New Zealand Christmas tree, both somewhat similar. And the red gum in particular scores extremely well on carbon sequestration. Anyway, we think they're beautiful trees. They're evergreen. So they provide shade year round, and they do well in San Diego. So we hope that when you see these trees, this gives you some idea of what we might be planting and what you might, we hope that you will be willing to donate and memorialize someone with one of our habitat trees. They're long blooming, these red blooms. Of course, we still do the jacaranda trees. I don't want to say that we don't do them, but we do love to plant. We do love to plant the habitat trees for the benefit of the environment. So thank you very much. That's,
Thanks. That was helpful to see what the habitat trees actually look like, because I just keep thinking of big brown trees. I mean, you know, big oaks or I don't know, something. So now I guess Penelope, stay where you are, because this is really exciting.
A lot of exposure this time. So the nominating committee has our report, and I think you will see if you have your agenda, you will see the people listed. Oh, there we go. Anyway, I want to start off by thanking our nominating committee because thanks to their input, they were very valuable input. We were able to put together this, I think, wonderful slate of officers. So I'd like to thank Anne Craig and Gaynor Pates, Mary Rogondino, Suzanne Ward, and Dodie Williams. They were invaluable in helping us get together this group. So with great pleasure, we announced the proposed slate of officers for 2021-22. And I wonder if we can see the pictures of our officers. Maybe this Susan Harris,
You know,
co-president. So Susan Harris. Yes.
if people would put could move to gallery to speaker view, then as the people talk or raise their hand, they'll be able to see who they are. So if you go up to the top where it says view on your screen and go to gallery view or speaker view,
Oh, wait a minute.
then you won't see all of us. You'll just see the person.
I'm having difficulty getting my mouse up there.
Well, you don't have to worry about it because you're saying it, but the rest of them, our new board could do that.
So it should be speaker view. Isn't it?
Speaker view, yes. And then you just see the person speaking.
Well, I'm not sure I've got it right, but anyway.
You do.
So as our co-presidents, let me first, Susan Harris and Ross Bradley. So Susan, could you?
Good morning.
There.
Okay,
Oh,
great,
perfect.
great. And Ross,
Hello.
can we see Ross Bradley?
I'm here.
There.
Yeah, there we are.
Can you see it?
Yes, yes,
Thank
thank you. Okay, and our co-first vice presidents for programs, Jean Collins.
Good morning.
And great, and Kim DeVoe. It's a little bit difficult finding how to get yourself online. Kim, are you able to? What does Kim need to do? Does she need to unmute herself or?
Just unmute yourself and yeah. Okay, let's come back to Kim.
Okay, co-recording secretaries, Susan Starr, who is completing her second year as recording secretary.
Don't see her either.
Can we press on her and find her? And
I'm here.
There she is.
Yes. Okay. And Jean Thomas.
Jean, can you say hello?
Hello.
There we go. There we go. There's Jean.
Yeah. Okay, and corresponding secretary, Leslie Dupree.
Hello, hello. I can't
Hello.
Can't see your face, but that's all right.
Okay.
And the
I think
treasurer,
this second vice president. Second,
sorry.
Penelope, I think you missed
What
the
did you say,
second
Bonnie?
vice presidents
Workshops.
workshop.
Oh, you're quite right. I did. So thank you, Bonnie. So the second vice presidents for workshops, Elaine Butts.
Good morning. Not
Morning.
sure you can see me.
We can see you.
And Jeannie Smith.
You can.
Can we see Jeannie?
She might be gone. She had an appointment that she couldn't miss.
Oh, yeah, she had to leave at 10:30.
Right.
Okay, and I think most people probably know Jeannie anyway. She's been very visible in many ways. Treasurer is Cindy Lococo.
There's-
And we all know Cindy. Thank you so much for serving again. So we thank these members for accepting this challenge and agreeing to serve. And we're really excited about the energy that they are bringing, enthusiasm. Now, under normal circumstances, we would vote for our nominees at the April meeting. However, since the club cannot meet in person for a voice vote, we will vote electronically. So this slate will be posted in the April Spindrifter. And I should say, be sure to read the Spindrifter because it will include interesting brief statements from the nominees introducing themselves. That's always a lot of fun to read. A week after the Spindrifter appears, members will receive an e-blast calling for your vote. And please note, only active and life members are eligible to vote. So what do? All those in favor, you need to do nothing. We will assume you approve the slate unless you reply to the e-blast with a no vote within 2 days of receiving it. So if you're voting no, you must reply to the e-blast within 2 days and writing no in the subject line. So anyway, that will go out sort of mid-April, and we will announce the results at the April meeting. And of course, the new officers will be installed at the May meeting. So thank you all again for agreeing, stepping up and saying yes when we asked you. So that's wonderful. And I think the club is in for a wonderful year ahead in good hands. And just like our past slate of officers who've done just a wonderful job under difficult circumstances, but we hope that the circumstances will change before the end of next year. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Penelope and Bonnie and everybody who said yes. It's great. Kim, we didn't get to see you. Can you say hi so people can see you?
Hi, sorry about that.
That's okay. Also, I saw this. Elizabeth Hanson raised her hand. I think I can say allowed to talk. So Elizabeth, I'm going to try this to see what your question is. Ready? Elizabeth? Can you say something? So maybe that doesn't work like that. But if the allow to talk doesn't work and you have any questions, there's Elizabeth. Okay, good. Elizabeth, unmute. Okay, Elizabeth. Did you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay, you raised your hand. Well, now I've learned something new on how to do this. So this is a good thing to know. Thank you for doing that because Cheryl's going to introduce our speaker. And if you raise your hand, then you can ask him a question directly, which will be great. So thank you. Through you, I've learned a new function of Zoom and I'm delighted. I think this will make it really interesting. So that concludes our business meeting. I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl, who will do the introductions of our speakers, our first live speaker, and then it will be followed by a video. So thank you all for being here. And we will not come back at the end. So after Kurt speaks, it'll be the video and then our meeting will be over. And thanks to everybody. Cheryl, oh, one more thing, because I always have one more thing. Don't forget to send me your pictures so that I can use them in a PowerPoint. It was so much fun this time and I would love to hear from more people. So thank you. Now, Cheryl.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. So this morning, I'm so happy to host Kurt Leuchner. He's a professor of natural resources at College of the Desert. And if you're not familiar where that is, that I'm sure most of you have spent some time in the Palm Springs area. It's located in Palm Desert. And I lived there for many years in Rancho Mirage. And I discovered Kurt at a lecture at the Rancho Mirage Public Library. And he gave a fascinating talk about bats and owls. And I was so impressed. And I thought for sure after that, that ornithology was very cool. But in case you are doubting it, a little fun fact that I learned from Kurt was that Ian Fleming, who all of you will remember was the author of James Bond series, was an avid bird watcher. And we have so much to learn from Kurt. So thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me?
We
Yes,
can.
can our panel participants turn off their video, please, so that we can focus on Kurt?
Yes.
Really? Great. So thanks for having me today. Just to follow up on that James Bond comment, the actual character James Bond, the name James Bond, came from a real ornithologist, James Bond. And that was kind of the connection between the birds and Ian Fleming, was that not only was Ian Fleming an avid bird watcher, but he chose the name James Bond, who was the author of the Field Guide to Birds of the West Indies. And it was a personal friend of Ian Fleming's. Anyway, thank you for inviting me to the Garden Club. I'm actually here live, so I have no idea what I'm going to say. So that just makes it even more exciting, right? And you can type questions, I believe, into the chat. I don't know if there's time at the end to answer them or not, but I'll stick around if that's allowed. Otherwise, I did put my email address in the chat a few minutes ago. So if you need to contact me afterwards, I'd be happy to answer questions for you or help you with ideas for your own backyard habitat. Or you can send me bird pictures or bug pictures and say, hey, Kurt, what is this? And I'll tell you what they are. So we can keep the conversation going after the talk. I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully you'll be able to see what I see. Can you? Can somebody unmute themselves and tell me they can see it?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Oh, not yet? Okay. Let's see what's going on here. It says that I've been disabled from screen sharing, so I think the host has to allow me to share my screen if you can figure that out. So
Okay,
I'm standing by.
Okay, see if that'll work.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's going to work now.
Good, there you go.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, good. So I was, I'm looking at your group there, and I was thinking, boy, we need some guys to get into gardening. We got to work on that because it's such a great thing. I spent the whole morning prior to joining your meeting in my backyard habitat, working on it and feeding the birds and all that kind of thing here in Palm Desert. And so the topic today is the importance of backyard habitats. My specialty, as I mentioned, is birds and also insects. But in order to attract wildlife, you need to have the right kind of plants, and that's where you all come in. So as was mentioned, I live in the Palm Springs area. I live in a town called Palm Desert, and many of you have been here to the Coachella Valley. And here where I live, we're surrounded by some fantastic natural areas that have been set aside. And so the development has been limited mostly to the valley. But whenever people build homes and shopping centers and the like, it takes away habitat from wildlife and from birds included. And it leads to something we call habitat fragmentation. And so that's where this talk comes in. By turning your yard into something that wildlife can use, in particular birds in this case, because they're so mobile, you can really help combat this problem of habitat fragmentation, which isn't a huge problem yet here where I live, but as the population grows, as you know, and it's true in the San Diego area as well, the wildlife loses their habitat that they need. So where I live, of course, golf is a big deal, and you see a lot of grass, which wastes a lot of water. Now, some people think this is beautiful, and maybe it is, but the question I always ask is, does it have any value for wildlife? And the answer often is no, or very little value. So the idea is to take what's out there and to make it better for wildlife, to enhance your yard to attract more of the wildlife you want to see, in particular birds, which we all love to see, I think. So one of the ways to get ideas is to walk around your neighborhood and see yards that aren't attracting any wildlife. I mean, this looks pretty and it's tidy and there's roses and they're blooming, but is this any value to wildlife? And the answer, sadly, is no. It would get a very low score. Again, you see a lot of wasted water, you see a lot of grass. It's not doing the world any good. It may look pretty to some, but in terms of wildlife value, no. And this is not the kind of pruning that we teach at College of the Desert in our arboriculture class either. But you see a lot of this kind of landscaping, which is not good for the trees and it's not good for wildlife. And frankly, I don't even think it looks good. And yet people do it all the time. Here's some more. So I don't mean to pick on these houses, but there's just so much more they could do if they wanted to attract wildlife. This is a very simple front yard, just all gravel, but again, no wildlife value to it. Now, if all you want to attract are the non-native invasive kind of species, things like house sparrows and starlings and cowbirds and pigeons, then you can do what you just saw in those photographs. But for me, I want to have a variety of birds and I want to have native birds in abundance in my yard. And to do that, you've got to plant native plants. And again, that's where the garden club comes in. Because in addition to planting all the wonderful plants that you were showing earlier that may be non-native, you want to also mix in as many native species as you can into your yards. We have a lot of palm trees. I live in Palm Desert, of course, and so I'm always walking around asking myself, is this necessary? Why do we insist on skinning the palms and cutting all the fronds off? It leaves nothing for wildlife. And again, I don't think this looks good either. To me, a palm is supposed to look like the one in the middle there, which is our native desert fan palm, Washingtonia foliifera. So that's the one I encourage people to plant. It's the only palm native to the Western United States. And this palm, I could do a whole lecture on the value of palm trees that are unpruned, but this palm hosts just a wide variety of beneficial species. I put a few of them here on the screen for you. Great horned owls and barn owls will nest in and around the palms, and they eat rats. They can eat 3 rats or more a night. So you want these owls to be hanging out in your yard and in your palms and to be on rat patrol. American kestrels, which you see in the middle here, lower part, also hunt small rodents and pesky insects that people don't want in their yards, and they'll nest in the palms. Orioles, which are beautiful, and there's 3 kinds of orioles in our area, will nest in palm fronds that are unpruned. And there's a bat, a yellow bat species that specializes in roosting in unpruned palm trees. And of course, bats are great to have around because they eat thousands and thousands of insects, including mosquitoes, every night. A single bat can eat 3,000 to 5,000 mosquitoes in one night. So we want to encourage our insect-eating bats, and unpruned palm trees are one way to do that. And just want to remind you, we've got about a dozen or more species of bats in our area, including the San Diego area, and all of them are insect eaters and beneficial. So back to the backyard habitats, to simplify things, it's really all about the food, water, and shelter, providing the right food, water, and shelter for wildlife. There are programs to certify your yard, which is a fun thing to do. You can show your neighbors and the people who walk by your yard and the people who come to tour your yard for the garden tours that you have created something that is beneficial to wildlife. Again, it all boils down to the plants, to those native plants. In our area, I'm going to go through some of our favorite native plants, but you can find out very easily what's native to the La Jolla area and plant those plants too. Around here though, brittle bush is very common and blooms this time of year. We've got bladderpot and lavender. These are all native plants that attract all kinds of beneficial insects, for example, that you'll see. If you do some xeriscaping, and it will also save you money and save water, which is a real concern here in the desert, as it is in your area as well. Now, this yard here is low maintenance and uses very little water, but it doesn't have quite the wildlife attracting power that it could. So I make up for it across the street. This happens to be my house. And this is just one little section of my house. And this was actually 20 years ago. So things have changed a bit even since this photo, but you get the idea. Now I do have a bougainvillea that I inherited. So I wasn't about to take it out, but all the plants that I've planted since moving into the house 25 years ago are native to at least the desert Southwest and use very little water and attract a wide variety of species. Over the years now, I've attracted at least 130 different kinds of birds. And I've been keeping track. So again, it all comes down to the plants. So you start with the trees, because those are going to form the foundation of your yard. And when I say backyard habitat, we also are talking about the front yard and the side yards and even the courtyard. So it's not just the backyard either. It's all portions of your yard that you want to work on. Start with the big stuff and then learn about the birds and other kinds of wildlife that you do want to attract, and plant those plants that will attract those specific species. And if you need more information on that, you can, of course, look online, or you can always send me an email and ask me, especially when it comes to birds, what kind of plants will attract certain birds. If you want to attract a verdin, for example, which is one of our most common birds in Palm Desert, then you want to plant sweet acacia, and you're guaranteed to get verdins. It provides not only nectar to them in the blossoms, but also insects. They eat both. And they'll even nest in the sweet acacias. This is a verdin nest in a cactus here, showing you the dome-shaped nest with a little side entrance there. Bell's vireos and yellow warblers prefer willows and cottonwoods. So if those are the kind of birds you want to attract and encourage, then you need to plant a cottonwood or a willow tree in your yard if you have space for that. The first tree that I planted when I moved into my house was a cottonwood, because I wanted it to grow big and eventually be a beacon for these birds to see as they're migrating over, and they'll come down to investigate. Birdhouses. Now, if you go to the store and buy a basic birdhouse off the shelf, like the one you see here, what might occupy that birdhouse? Your most likely resident is going to be a Buick's wren. They will use your basic birdhouse. But if you're trying to attract certain birds, you need to do a little bit of research first and find out what size hole needs to be there to attract that kind of bird, because these birds are very picky. They won't move into a birdhouse that has a hole that's too big for them. They won't feel safe. So you need to match up the diameter of the hole with the kind of bird you're trying to attract. And remember that a lot of birds won't use birdhouses either. So that's something you can also email me separately for more information. We can talk more about birdhouses and which ones you might want to put up and what kind of birds it will attract. Where I live, we have roadrunners. Maybe there's a few in La Jolla, but around here they love Texas ebony. Texas ebony makes a nice living hedge or barrier between properties. And it's also very dense and has thorns, and the roadrunners love to nest right in the middle of that. They feel very safe. Cactus wrens, true to their name, love cactus. So if you could have some large cactus specimens in your yard, you may be able to entice a cactus wren to move in, and they'll build their nest right in the middle of a group of cactus pads with a side entrance. The male does all the nest building. And cactus, of course, have some of the most beautiful blooms in nature. So add some cactus to your mix if you can, even in La Jolla. you can probably get a few cactus to grow. And don't forget about the pollinators. If you're going to plant native plants, which I encourage you to do, you need to attract the pollinators that will pollinate those native plants. So try to avoid using pesticides and never use any decon rodent-side type products because they get into the food chain and affect our pets as well. Watch out for genetically modified foods and do what you can to plant milkweed in your yard for monarchs, which are declining drastically for a variety of reasons. But if you're going to plant milkweed, make sure you plant the type of milkweed that is native to your area. So it's very important you choose the right kind of milkweed. If you plant any old milkweed that you find at the nursery for sale, it's liable to have been imported, say, from Mexico, which means it's going to have a built-in insecticide, systemic insecticide in the plant that will kill any caterpillars that form on that milkweed. So just like with the habitat in general, the pollinator garden is the same kind of thing. It's about the food and the water and the shelter for the insects and pollinators that you're trying to attract. So I'm going to go through some of these birds and insects that will be part of your pollinator efforts. Let's start with the bees. Now, European honeybees and Africanized honeybees are the same species and they're not distinguishable in the field. So they both occur here, and just a reminder, both of them, including the European honeybee, are non-native. They were imported to the United States in the 1600s. And of course, they're beneficial because they make honey and they help pollinate our crops, but they're not the best at pollinating our native plants. So we actually want to encourage other kinds of bees, the native bees, to come into our yards, not necessarily the honeybees. One of the ways to encourage at least some of these native bees is to put up some bee houses. Bee houses are pieces of wood with holes drilled into them. Not all the way through, but fairly deep, anywhere from 2 to 5 inches deep. You should vary the depth. And the diameter of the hole can also be varied, but 1/4 inch is a very popular diameter with a lot of our native bees. Here are some of the native bees, for example, listed and shown here: the orchard bee, the mason bee, and the leafcutter bee. If you ever notice little half circles cut out of certain leaves in your garden, that is the work of the leafcutter bee. And the female leafcutter bee will take those little leaf chunks that she's carefully excised from your leaves, and she'll find a hole like this one here, and she'll line the hole with those leaves to give her young a very soft place to develop. So their nesting chambers will be lined with leaves, and that's why they cut them out of your leaves. And they'll lay their eggs in here. They'll put some food in there for the larva to eat when it hatches. And eventually the adult bees will fly out of the hole to carry on the life cycle of these native bees. So our native bees nest either in holes like these that are hard to find these days. That's why we need to put up bee houses, or they'll nest in holes in the ground. And we want to encourage them. They're solitary bees. They're non-aggressive bees. They're not likely to ever sting anybody, but we need them to pollinate our native plants. A little bit of research will tell you that carpenter bees love orange jubilee and Tacoma stands, which are beautiful plants to have in your yard in any case. And these female carpenter bees, the large black ones, will leave them alone if you leave them alone. They'll leave you alone. And they're also good to have around. Insects and many bees prefer flowers in the purple end of the spectrum, so consider that when you're choosing what to plant in your yard. Mix it up, but make sure you've got some blues and purples to satisfy the needs of the bees. And do a little bit of research about food plants so that you can attract butterflies to your pollinator garden. I mentioned milkweed before. Make sure, again, you find out what kind of milkweed is native to your area, so that these caterpillars won't be killed by those systemic insecticides that are on some milkweed plants. And then you'll get beautiful monarch butterflies and queen butterflies throughout the year passing through your yard and looking and laying their eggs on that milkweed plant. Great purple hair streaks, one of my favorite butterflies, actually lays its eggs on mistletoe. So if you don't have any mistletoe in your yard, which is a parasitic plant, you probably won't see that particular butterfly. Butterflies in general like open flowers in the aster family, which make good landing pads for them. They also like a plant called butterfly bush, Buddleia, and I mentioned brittle bush earlier too, which also is in the aster family. So put in some asters. And these food plants, in the case of the meadowlark, they like buckwheats. So if you add native buckwheat to your yard, you'll get the meadowlarks coming. If you plant a plant called thamnosma, you'll get this particular kind of swallowtail. If you happen to have citrus family members in your yard or your neighbors do, you'll probably have giant swallowtails laying their eggs on that. And pygmy blues like salt bushes. So again, the more research you do on native plants and which native plants will attract certain butterflies, then the wider variety of butterflies you'll have in your yard. Yucca moths, which are a big deal around here where I live, actually pollinate Joshua trees and yucca plants. There's a very close relationship between these two species. So we always make sure to plant some yuccas to attract these white yucca moths so they can do their thing. And then you can encourage beneficial insects by not spraying insecticides in your yard. So really try to limit your use of pesticides or eliminate them if you can, and encourage ladybird beetles and green lacewings and praying mantises to do their thing, which is to eat other pest insects such as aphids. This is what ladybird beetles eat, is aphids, and same thing with green lacewings. And as gardeners, you know that aphids are the enemy. So do what you can to encourage the beneficial insects. Now let's move on to some pollinating birds. Hummingbirds, of course, come to mind. So if you plant native plants, they'll be blooming most of the year or all throughout the year. But you can also supplement with feeders if you need to. If you do feed hummingbirds, make sure you don't use the red dye and use 4 parts water to 1 part sugar. And use hot water so that the sugar will dissolve. And if you see any kind of mold or mildew forming, then change the water immediately, or if it turns color. But otherwise, plan on maybe changing your feeders once a week and keeping them clean. This feeder happens to be an Oriole feeder. It's got larger perches here. Same mix though, either 3 parts water to 1 part sugar or 4 parts water to 1 part sugar. Around here where I live, the Costas hummingbird is the #1 visitor to the feeders. Where you live, it's probably the Anna's hummingbird, common garden bird. And hummingbirds in general like flowers that are tubular and in the orange to red end of the spectrum. So around here, we plant a lot of tuberosa. In your area, you could plant various penstemons or sages that like to live in the La Jolla area, and you'll get hummingbirds. There's other feeding you can do. These are some things you can ask me later on if you want to talk about bird feeding. But if you want to attract goldfinches, you put out thistle seed. If you want to attract certain woodpeckers, you might put out suet. If you want to attract doves, you might have a platform type feeder. So there's all kinds of different feeders you can do to attract different birds. So mix it up. Variety is the key. That thistle seed will be eaten by 3 kinds of goldfinches. The most common type is the lesser goldfinch here, male and female. If you're lucky, you may get a Lawrence's goldfinch showing up at your feeder, and you may get occasional visits on the coast there from American goldfinches. So there's 3 kinds of goldfinches. A group of goldfinches is called a charm, by the way. And woodpeckers, as I mentioned, are attracted to suet and large trees. The Nuttall's woodpecker is one that you get in your area. In my area, we get more of these guys, the ladder-backed woodpecker. As you're attracting mourning doves and other birds to your yard, you'll also attract the predators, and that's just part of nature. So Cooper's hawks will frequent your yard and do a little bit of hunting from time to time. But this is the hawk that does terrorize your bird feeders and chase your mourning doves, in case you were wondering. It's called a Cooper's hawk. They're kind of a mid-sized hawk with a long tail and fairly short, broad wings. This happens to be a young bird. You can tell from the streakiness. A water feature is very important. This is in my backyard. I've got a bird bath here. I've got a water dripper. And then when this bird bath fills, it drips off the side into another bird bath down below. So I kind of get two bird baths that are filled out of the deal. One drips into the other, and then finally, whatever water is left over, and it's not much, it's a very slow drip, helps keep certain plants going. But again, if you have a bird bath in your yard, that's great. But there's a lot of problems with bird baths. One, most bird baths are too deep. So you want a bird bath that's nice and shallow. If your bird bath is too deep, birds won't use it. So put some stones in there, some flat stones, to decrease the depth of the water. That might help. And if you add a dripping element to your bird bath, that will more than double the number and type of birds that use your bird bath. There's something about a very slow drip that just drives birds crazy. And migrating birds like western tanagers, which will be passing through your yards any day now, will detect that dripping water from high above, and they'll stop in to get a drink. Remember, a lot of birds that visit our yards are not seed eaters, so your bird feeders won't attract them, but your water drippers will. The black phoebe in particular, which is a resident in your backyards, is always near water. So if you have a swimming pool, your neighbor does, and you probably have a black phoebe hanging around. The closely related Say's phoebe is another permanent resident of your area, which does not associate itself with water, so you'll see it out in the open. They're both there in your yard. If you're able to add a brush pile in your backyard or side yard or somewhere, the birds will sure appreciate it, especially these white-crowned sparrows, because they can dive into this brush pile for safety at any time, and they feel really safe feeding near a brush pile. A rock wall is a nice addition too. This is between my house and my neighbor's house, and this is unmortared, so there's all kinds of nooks and crannies here, and the lizards just love it. I mean, it's just a lizard condominium here, subdivision really, and the roadrunners will run up and down the wall trying to catch a meal too. So it really is the lizard population in my yard. And in my Palm Desert yard, these are the reptiles that I've recorded over the years. So I got a pretty nice variety for, you know, just a typical yard here. We got side blotched lizards and whiptail lizards and two kinds of geckos and desert spiny lizards. I've had red racer snakes and also night snakes in my yard. These are all harmless species that are just out there eating bugs and doing their thing and living in the rock wall as they should. I've also got some dust bath areas. I keep this area particularly clean, and I sift it with a sifter to make the dust nice and fine, and the birds really appreciate that because they like to take dust baths, which keep the mites off their back. Here's a Gambel's quail taking a dust bath. And if you want to visit my yard sometime, just let me know in Palm Desert, and maybe you'll see one of our 4 desert tortoises roaming around the backyard. These are all rescues, homeless tortoises that cannot be released into the wild, and of course a permit is required for that. But there's a lot, just like dogs and cats, there's a lot of homeless tortoises out there that need homes. So if you happen to have a fenced-in backyard that's suitable, you might consider adopting a tortoise. And then other critters may come to your yard too. These are some that occur in our area, gray fox and kangaroo rats and ringtails and striped skunks and raccoons. All these guys have visited my yard from time to time. Fun to see. And my cat Wally reminds you that if you have a cat, to either keep them indoors, or if they must go outside like Wally needs to because he's rescued from the outside, then make sure they have 2 bells on their collar, which helps prevent them from catching too many birds. My email is there. So again, if you have any follow-up questions, copy it down and feel free to contact me. So you can unmute if you want. And shall I stop screen sharing?
Okay.
My email is going to disappear. It's kleuschner@collegeofthedesert.edu. It's in the chat.
Thank you so much, Kurt. I have a question. With the adopting the tortoise, I have I live in the outside of San Diego in Rancho Santa Fe, and I have a lot of coyotes because I have an open field, which I love, and it has untrimmed native palm trees. It's just wonderful, wonderful habitat. But I do have a lot of coyotes, and so would a tortoise be prey to them?
They would be. So you wouldn't want to adopt a tortoise unless you had a fenced-in situation.
Oh, but I do, but the coyotes just hop the fence like a gazelle. It's not.
Okay, all right. So I guess I would say your yard's not secure enough then to
Okay, thank you.
safely have a tortoise. 'Cause
Okay.
yeah, you could lose it.
All right.
Um,
And then I have one more question. I hope the group doesn't mind. With the water feature, that's something I should do better and create more water places for the habitat. How do you keep it clean without getting funky? Or does it not matter?
Well, sure it matters. I've got little wire kind of scrub brushes that I kind of keep next to each one of my bird baths.
Yep, okay.
And I'll just give them a good scrub from time to time.
All right.
To keep the algae and the gunk down.
Because it gets
and hose them out. And I also change the water almost daily because you don't want mosquitoes, of course, to become a problem.
Oh, okay. All right.
With standing water. And of course, we don't want to waste water either. Water's so precious. So if you do have a dripper, just make it drip really, really slow, and then make the spillover from the bird bath go into an area that kind of needs to get watered anyways.
Okay, good idea. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So anyway, thank you all for listening. And again, feel free to contact me with more questions.
Thank you so much. I learned so much this morning. Appreciate you, Kurt.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kurt. That was very interesting. Loved it.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so next up, we we pre-recorded with Naomi Frega. She's the Director of Conservation Programs at the California Botanical Garden. And her specialty really is research into rare plants that thrive in the Mojave Desert. And you're just going to be amazed at this harsh environment, and she's going to take you through and show you the abundant plant life that does exist there. So enjoy.